Welcome to Telling It Like It Is, podcast number 5 here. I'm Dave Scholler. Down the hallway is my son and bracketology extraordinaire, Gordon Scholler II, named after my dad. Also a college basketball player at St. Joe's, and 3 years after 3 years at Lebanon Valley. So he's loves this time of year like the rest of us. But this is going to be a weird tournament. We just got to talk about some strange occurrences in a strange year, as we know, but we're lucky to have basketball because last year at this time we were watching teams walk off the floor, and that wasn't fun. That was a miserable experience not to have March Madness, but we all understood that. And so, how weird do you think this year's tournament's going to be, Gordon?
Definitely going to be interesting. It's going to be unique in its own way. Obviously, the biggest change this year is just the fact that we're going to be playing it all in basically one location. And that actually has very big implications just on how the bracket's going to be filled out, how, the selection committee is going to pick teams this year. So I think it's definitely going to be fun. It's going to be different, but definitely exciting just because, again, we, didn't get it last year. And I think everyone is looking forward to having a big sporting event again.
Yeah, and about that playing it in one area. I mean, a couple of things that have been normal. I mean, I'm 53. I'm a lot older than you are. So for me, like always trying to put a big team in their home region, unless you're an Indiana team or I guess maybe a Midwest team, there's going to be really no advantage. Like there's nobody to put out west with an advantage or in the east with an advantage. So that's definitely different. There's not going to be that partisan crowd feeling. How you think that's going to affect the players at all?
Yeah, definitely. I think, it'll be a true test of who the actual, good teams are. And normally what the selection committee tries to do in a typical year is, they'll try to send teams to the closest geographical location just so they can draw up more fan support. So, in a typical year, like, this year, Gonzaga is probably going to be the number one overall seed. They would get to basically choose where they play, their first 4 games in the NCAA tournament. So they would choose to go out west. This year, everyone's got to play in Indianapolis. There's no advantage. And it's definitely going to be interesting because I think we'll have a more even bracket because we're playing in one location. Just because in a normal year, they're going to try to send teams again, like to where they want to go. Whereas this year, they're using what they call an S curve bracketing principle, which means they're just going to basically whoever's ranked, the best 1 seed is going to go with the worst 2 seed and the best 3 seed, and they're just going to balance out the bracket so that it's really even across the board. So I think it'll make for a very competitive, balanced bracket overall.
Yeah, and the other thing is the committee also has another challenge because some of those old benchmarks, like a 20-win season, used to mean something. To this year, that a lot of that goes out the window. Some teams have won 20, obviously, but those easy little rules for the committees, like 500 in a Power Five conference. So those things this year are out the window. But I know the winning 20 when I was younger it was a very big deal. But today, obviously, we're not going to have that situation. Which brings me up to another challenge the committee has. I haven't seen this big a challenge on where to seed Villanova since Cincinnati in 1999. They were number one team in the country, and Kenya Martin broke his leg. So that was a big deal. And like you say, they're supposed to seed them on their work, whether or not they don't think they're going to be as strong without their best player, right?
So they have a tough job with that because, obviously they can't ignore what they did all season with Colin Gillespie. But the seating committee definitely does take into account the fact that they're not going to have him the rest of the tournament. That's something that they definitely take into consideration. They're not going to go solely based off that. I think obviously if you were just going to go solely based off of what Villanova is going to be without Colin Gillespie, they'd probably barely make the tournament. So it's a balance. I think ultimately Villanova is probably going to end up somewhere in that 5 seed, 6 seed range, just because their resume, what they've done this season with and without Colin Gillespie probably warrants them like a 3 or a 4 seed. And then taking into account the fact that they lost to Georgetown today and the fact that they're losing a key piece, that's definitely going to bump them down a couple seeds. So it's a balance, but they definitely take into consideration, and it's going to be reflected in their seed.
Nice. A couple other things this year, definitely different. KU, Kentucky. Well, if you say KU and Kansas, it's Kansas, but KU and Duke, not in the tournament. Duke and no Kentucky, none of the two big blue buds. Carolina will be in. Kansas will be in, but those big four blue programs. When's the last time that happened?
So I believe 1976 is the last time both Kentucky and Duke didn't make it. And that's pretty interesting because it's also, I believe, the last time we had a team go undefeated through the regular season
It
and the
is.
NCAA tournament. That was Indiana. They went on to run the table. And right now we have Gonzaga, who is undefeated going into the tournament. We'll see if they can pull it off. But yeah, it's been a very long time since Duke and Kentucky haven't been in this. Kentucky was really nowhere close. They lost today in the SEC tournament to pretty much solidify it. Duke had a chance. Obviously, their game got canceled. Someone within their program got COVID, which is unfortunate because they definitely had some momentum going up against Florida State. And if they had won, one, two more games, they really might have been able to sneak in there. And obviously, they're Duke. I think they definitely draw attention. And if the selection committee, I should say, has a way to get them in, I'm sure they would have done their best. But that's pretty much out the door now.
Yeah, the play-in games. I know there's a couple of 16 seeds usually get in there, but there's always two games with 11 seeds. And so this year, trying to think of those big conference teams that they like to play against each other, kind of like in a big conference showcase. And I think Syracuse, Michigan State, and Louisville. I mean, they're all well-respected programs and well-respected coaches. So you wonder, but those could be some candidates in that 11 game. What do you think about that?
So Syracuse, it's just a matter of whether they're going to get in or not. Right now, I think they're projected by Joe Lunardi to finish. Right now they're like the last team in the field, so they're a toss-up right now. I think their resume is pretty good, but there's a lot of basketball left to be played, so they could definitely be shuffled down as the week goes on. Michigan State and Louisville, I definitely think will be in, but they could definitely end up in that first four game. Michigan State lost today versus Maryland, which definitely didn't help their resume, although I think they'll be able to avoid the first four, but it's definitely a possibility. Louisville, I think there's a very good chance they could be in the first four. They lost to Duke yesterday. Um, right now, I think they're projected to be like one of the last four buys. So definitely, I could definitely see Louisville in there. Michigan State has a chance. Syracuse. Those are really the big names that you could possibly see in the first four. After that, there's some mid-major schools like Drake and Colorado State that you might see in there.
Yeah, because that's gonna be interesting stuff. Going back to the conference tournaments, some wacky scheduling situations in the conference tournaments right now. I know the northeastern version of the MAC has had a crazy situation. They only have one quarterfinal game tonight, and then tomorrow night's the semifinal. So that's such a disadvantage for the quarterfinal winner tonight. I know in this situation we have to just be thankful to have basketball, but Iona, they gave the 9 seed when they were 6-3. The rest of the teams in the conference all played 12 league games or more, and I guess they penalized Iona for being 6-3. But so they played in an out bracket game with Quinnipiac at 8-9, and then Siena, who wins the league, which is a very competitive league, and Siena's been a very successful basketball program over the years. It's had some great runs. How do you think Siena feels having to face Rick Pitino in the 1-9 game when Iona being 6-3 isn't a 9 seed?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how the MAC came to that conclusion. I think Iona finished 6-3 in their conference, which is really good. That probably would have finished them, at least top four in the conference if every team had played 9 games. Yeah, I definitely I feel for them, but more so I feel for Siena and I think Quinnipiac. They played in the out bracket game. They had to play a team that went 6-3, and again, I mean, it's a Rick Pitino coach team. You knew they were going to be a threat. So I'm very curious as to what the thought process was there, putting them in the out bracket game. I know some other conferences definitely tried to take an alternative approach this year when it came to formulating their conference tournaments, just due to the fact that everyone played a different number of games. I think one of the West Coast conferences basically designed like a new. Basically, they actually went to Ken Pomeroy, who's one of like I guess he's the bracketologist for CBS, to kind of put together like an alternative metrics or figuring out like how the conference tournament should be seeded, given that everyone had different games. So there was some different. I saw a lot of different conferences out there tried to like adopt a different format this year to account for that. But yeah, I'm not really sure how Iona ended up as a 9 seed in that
I guess
situation.
they penalize them for not playing enough games, but it's not up to the kids and the coach to play. It's
And you penalize the other teams too. I mean, I
yeah.
think you penalize Siena
Oh
and
yeah. Well,
yeah, more than anything.
I know they can't be happy over there.
You
Getting
know.
back to Gonzaga for a second before the other night, Gonzaga's in a tight game, and I know Mark Few is sitting there thinking, is it better for us to lose this game tonight? Because last couple of times we've had undefeated teams, semifinal Saturday seems to pluck them off. We get UNLV with a late run. We get Kentucky with a late run. Then we have Wichita State, who got Kentucky in the 1-8 game a couple of years back, which was really brutal for Wichita
Criminal.
State with that great team. But you feel bad for Coach Marshall and Fred Van Vliet and those guys, but and Baker. But just Gonzaga, that the staff was thinking, if we lose, we lose. If you don't want to ever lose, but the pressure is just going to be. This could be the year where you could go undefeated because maybe it's be less pressure, but I still think that undefeated pressure gets ratcheted up a little bit. It's something that since 1976 we haven't seen, and like I said, 91 that UNLV team. Although some of us knew they weren't deep and knew that Duke would give them a shot. But the other thing is that Kentucky team, you could see the nerves just building on them versus Wisconsin in that game, and you could see them just tighten it up. And you understand it because the media frenzy today is going to be all over Gonzaga.
It's a lot of pressure, and to add to that pressure for Gonzaga, Gonzaga's never won the NCAA tournament, and they've been close a couple times. They've had some really good teams over the years, so I think there's like double the pressure really because they're trying to win their first one, and they're also trying to, basically finish the season undefeated. But it's interesting, obviously the BYU game for them is like the last game they can, get away with losing. They were going to obviously
Right.
be a one seed and in the tournament no matter what. So it's an interesting dynamic. I definitely think Gonzaga is very capable of winning out and
Sure.
running the table.
Sure.
I think it would be hard to bet against them or any, a couple other teams right now to
Sure.
win it all. But it's definitely an interesting dynamic. We'll see. We'll see how they handle it. It's going to be
Yeah,
interesting.
I'd be happy to see if they win. Since my Blue Devils aren't in, I'll be rooting for Winthrop and Rutgers. My old Winthrop Eagles, I want to talk about now. Old stomping ground of mine. I watched them this year many times. 23-1. They have some good bigs. They got some good guards. They got 6'7" point guard. People don't realize how good that level of basketball is. Some people they just watch the Big Ten and the Big East and everybody else. But Winthrop could definitely be, if they could get a 12, they could definitely be in that historically upset-minded 12-5 game. I could see them being in a 12-5 game
Yeah,
because
they're probably looking
Winthrop,
at, that 12, 13 seed range. They're definitely going to be in prime time upset range. I definitely wouldn't want to be the 4 or 5 seed that's going to have to play them in the first
no
round.
sir, no sir, they're
Winthrop's
legit.
pulled off upsets in the past. They beat Syracuse one year in the 5-12 game, I think back in 2005, I want to say. So they've done it before, and they're really good this year. I think they were 15-0 at one point before they finally lost. So they're really good. It's definitely a team that should be on everyone's radar in terms of,
Yeah.
uh, a possible sleeper, a team that can maybe win a couple games.
And then if people want to say, well, who do they play? But people don't want to go play Winthrop anymore. Since Greg Marshall was at Winthrop, people don't want to go play them because his first year there, they go and beat Missouri and then they beat Maryland. And then that was it. People are like, no more. And, I know back in the day, they beat, when the assistant coach at St. Joe's was on the bench, they beat Notre Dame, I believe, in a first round game.
Mm.
So they've done it before, and they're dangerous. They're tough. I mean, so that's gonna be scary. The other team I really liked watching was Mount St. Mary's. They had really great depth in their front court. I mean, I know they'll be in the 16 game. I'm rooting for them hard because I really like the way they played. Um, they upset Brian in that championship game, but really just a really good game. Not a big upset, but still a small upset. But they have some good lengths, good skill level on these big guys. Definitely got a couple of guys who were a steal for the level, and they're gonna be fun to watch. I mean, I know they'll probably be in a 16 game because they haven't been in there in a couple of years, but they're gonna be fun to watch. I mean, hopefully they can win that 16 game and then they can move on and play some one seed and dream for a night and see what happens.
Yeah, no, I mean they definitely. So it's kind of weird this year because there's been a lot of number one seeds in the smaller conferences that have
Oh yeah,
lost. So there's a bunch of teams in there who like, I guess you could say had like average regular seasons that are in the tournament now. So right now, yeah, I would say Mount St. Mary's is probably going to be in that out bracket game, but there's a lot of tournaments that still have to play, and a lot of tournaments that have teams that were like low seeds going into their conference tournaments that are now in the
right,
championship game.
right.
So who knows? By the end of the week, there might be teams who are even lower than them, and it might bump them into just a regular 16-1 game or even a 15 seed, maybe. Who knows?
Sure.
Like I know the America East, they have the 4 seed and the 6 seed are playing in the conference championship. They have
Right.
UMass Lowell versus Hartford. So you never know. Right now, I'd say they're definitely going to be in that out bracket, that 16 seed game.
Yeah, they
But
might
they'll
be
be
playing.
interesting.
They might be playing the America East winner. They could be playing that.
They on it, I would say pretty much guaranteed whoever wins the America East will probably also be in that 16 out bracket game. And then I'd say Appalachian State, who won the Sun Belt, I believe. I think they're definitely going to be in there as well. And they'll probably be, again, there's some other conferences that traditionally the winner ends up in the bracket game for the 16 seed.
Yeah.
They'll probably be in there as well. They're going to finish up in the coming days. So
Yeah. Speaking of App State, great to see Michael Almonacci make that long journey. He had to transfer a couple of times. One of the programs he went to took basketball away from the program. So it's great to see him hit some big shots and go in the NCAA tournaments. That's going to be wild at App State. You're probably right. They'll be in that 16 game. That's going to be fun. The team I really felt for, though, was Hofstra the other day. They cut that game down to one, and then it goes back up on them. But they were in last year, and they haven't had coach with them this year. Joe's a class guy, and what happened was, he obviously was out. But the thing is, they made it in last year. They never got to experience it, and it had been the first time they'd been back in a while. And now they missed this year in the championship game. It's such a tough league, and so they're not going to be in. I feel for those teams who I feel like it's not like Duke or Michigan where they'll be back shortly. It's not easy at that mid level to get in there. Sometimes the pressure is so great to win your conference tournament. Hofstra's league has gotten two bids sometimes in the past, but it's not normal to do that. And so I really felt for Hofstra this year because I watched them a bunch of times. They're a real quality team, but I always feel for those teams that missed, the year before, and then something comes up like even the kid, hurt for Duke. I mean, he's one of my favorite players, and he's last year there's COVID. They had a really good team last year. This year he win a couple of games in the ACC tournament. He's out. So kid like that's never going to get you a chance to even experience it, and hopefully he stays for Duke's sake. But if he doesn't, he'll never had a chance to play in the NCAA tournament. When you go to Duke, you don't anticipate that.
yeah, it's really crazy because it was this day, not this exact date, but
Right.
it was the Thursday before the NCAA tournament a year ago, where
Right.
the NCAA tournament got called off and all the conference tournaments got,
Yep.
uh, canceled.
Yeah.
So it was however many teams we have right now already locked into the field to win their conference tournaments. That's how many teams last year won their conference tournament and then didn't end up going on to the NCAA tournament because it got canceled. So Hofstra was one of them. I think St. Peter's
Yep.
was another one. Another team I think about, Rutgers, they're going to be in again this year, but they haven't been to the tournament in, pretty sure, since like the 70s, 80s,
Yeah.
long time.
Maybe
And
19. Yeah.
they were a shoe in last year, and there were times this year where they were kind of like on the bubble, like they were on the right side of things, but it was getting a little shaky. And I was thinking about them, like if they were to have not gotten in this year after last year, they definitely would have gotten in and broken that huge drought. How would have felt if they missed this year? But they're definitely going to be in. But yeah, it's pretty crazy how everything's kind of changed over the course of the year. I'm glad that we have a tournament, but
Oh yeah.
it's definitely been an interesting year scheduling wise, and it's definitely had a major impact on just the
Yeah.
entire college season.
Yeah. I felt for St. John's. That was a tough loss for them today. I was rooting for the Johnnies again, and Coach Anderson has done an amazing job with the program. And they had the freshman of the year in the conference, and really probably he probably got some votes even for player of the year. But the thing is, like, they just didn't. That game today with Seton Hall was probably a chance for them to flex their muscle, but a tough loss, and so they're probably not going to get in. Seton Hall hopefully will benefit, and maybe they can beat Georgetown tomorrow and beef up their resume. Hopefully, Seton Hall will get on the right side of this. Coach does a great job with them. Hopefully, they get in so we get some more local flavor in this tournament here because we're missing some, and we got to get the Brook back in there soon, and we got to get all the local guys in there. But the America East this year, like you said, is Hartford versus
Mass Lowell.
Lowell. That's amazing. Good for Lowell because they're new to the conference in the last several years, so it's good to see that. But I'd rather see the Brook. I'll be rooting hard for Rutgers and Winthrop, like I said, and Gonzaga, and be my third team. Who are you going to be rooting for?
It's a good question. I really like Iowa. Iowa's an interesting team to watch. They're senior heavy. I think they play tough. I do really like Gonzaga. I think they play well together. Not to be like a front runner, but I'm definitely gonna be rooting for them. Rutgers is another one, obviously for the similar reasons that you are. And then definitely, Iona is another like kind of local team.
Sure.
Like might be able to sneak in there. We'll see what happens.
Hopefully they get it.
But this year, I'm a Duke fan, so with Duke not being in, I'm really just going to root for a really good tournament, and I'm just going to hope for a perfect bracket as well. Probably not
Yeah,
going to work out, but
yeah,
that's what I'm going to be rooting for. We're just rooting for a lot of upsets and just good basketball, just enjoying the tournament again.
yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing Alabama play because Coach Oates has done an amazing job down there, and if he keeps doing that, they're going to put all those resources into him. And Alabama, like in the mid '90s, was very good, and in the SEC, and they'll be back. So hopefully they can keep Coach Oates there, and they'll give him what he needs to continue success. And because if Alabama gets behind him, there's no telling what he can do as a great coach like himself. So he's just been unbelievable. Buffalo, he beats Arizona, goes down to Alabama, which is not been great. They've had a couple of decent runs, but with Godfrey and people like that, but they all of a sudden are just knocking on the door. I think he definitely has him as a top 16 seed here. Yeah, he's got him as a two
Yeah.
seed on the two line, which is
Joe
amazing.
Lunardi has it right now as they're the best two seed. And quite frankly, if they go on to win the SEC tournament, there's a very good chance they might sneak onto that one line.
Sure.
Um, More likely than not, I think they'll end up staying on the two line, but
Right.
they're going to be right there. They're one of the top teams. They've had a crazy good year. But it'll be interesting, because I think the one line is going to comprise of Gonzaga, Baylor for sure. Whoever wins the Big Ten tournament, assuming it's one of Michigan, Illinois, Ohio State, or Iowa,
Sure.
one of those four teams going to be on there, and then they might be able to sneak on there as that last one seed. So that might be their way in. If not, I definitely see them no worse than a two seed this year for sure.
Heard a funny statistic today. I'm a diehard ACC fan, and it's the first time in many, many years that they didn't have a player up for Player of the Year, and they didn't have a team on the one line. So that doesn't happen too often. Both those things
No,
in ACC basketball history. But there's no great team in the ACC this year. Although I could see a couple of teams making some noise. I could definitely see Virginia still making some noise, because really technically they still are the defending champs, because last year we didn't have a tournament. And the other team, I still think Carolina's got something in them. I know they're very great on the backboard. I know they need better guard play, but I definitely think it. And Georgia Tech is hot right now. If they could get in, I feel like they could cause some trouble in there. And it's we'll have to see what happens with Clemson. They had a tough loss yesterday. I guess they might be in trouble. Or do you think they're going to get in, Clemson, or you think they're
I
out?
think
Or
they're safe to get in. It just won't be a pretty, I think like the 10 seed.
they could be.
Nine,
They could be an 11 game. You never know.
they could be. Yeah, no, listen, there's a lot of games that still to be played in all these tournaments. So wherever teams are now, it's probably going to change pretty drastically, especially around the bubble.
Yeah.
Teams who feel safe right now might not feel so safe like by Sunday. So Clemson might be one of them, but I think they're good to get in. But yeah, the ACC's got a lot of quality teams. It's just like you said, there's no one team that really like jumps out at you. Typically you have Duke, who's usually a title contender. Carolina's usually a little bit better than what they are. Then usually have Virginia and like one other team. So typically, we're used to having. I remember 2 years ago, so last time the NCAA tournament, the ACC was three of the four number one seeds. Duke, Carolina, Virginia were all number one seeds.
That's
They
right.
were top three ranked teams in the country, actually. So, this year it's a lot different, but it's still a good conference, still very deep. I think who's left in the tournament now? They have Virginia, Georgia Tech, and then
Carolina and
Carolina,
Florida
Virginia
State.
Tech.
Florida State's always going to give somebody with their depth.
Yeah,
Florida State is always an issue.
yeah. So
They're going to get into it. So we'll see. I always like to look at the records of the conferences when the tournament's over,
yeah,
because it's always fun to watch. But it's going to be fun. So Sunday night, what I wanted to do was pick each bracket and individual video after the bracket comes out and go through that. So hopefully you could join us for that, and we'll have some fun. To check your work schedule for Sunday. So I'll see what your work schedule is, but it's going to be fun. Can't wait to get started with this. This has been great. Right now, I think Carolina's playing as we speak. They're playing Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's another very underrated team. Oh my
yeah.
goodness, they play really hard, really well. So it's going to be a fun tournament. So just hopefully we shed some light for the people out there what teams are going to get in, and then of course on basically Sunday night, once the brackets come out, we'll get our own bracketology. I'll pick the brackets. Actually, we'll go to the east, to the Midwest, the South, and the West itself, and we can go through and pick them. And I'm trying to think if we need anybody to join us who follows college basketball as much as we do, because we don't want anybody on here who doesn't follow the stuff. I mean, I've
Yeah,
watched it
we'll have
every
to do
day.
our research, see if there's anyone else we can include in this.
Yeah, we'd like to. Anybody out there who's watching and wants to reach out, if you show us some credibility, we'll definitely put you on. We're not shy, but we only want the best guests here on telling it like it is. We want to keep it legit. But thanks for coming on today, Gordon, and we'll see you down the hallway.
Alrighty.
Later.